Working in retail is never easy, especially when you have to deal with a bunch of crazies. Welcome to this episode of Tales from Retail. Our first tale is from Theodrich Ryder. So this happened in the first hour of my shift. Guy got fuel at the pumps and came in to pay. Wanted some Montego cigarettes as well. Asked for a short pack of Montego. We got multiple types, so I asked him in return if he wanted reds, lights, or menthol shorts. His response? Just marches behind the counter to grab the pack himself, and when I try to tell him he can't come back behind the counter, he did that whatever kind of motion. First red flag. Regardless, I ring up his smokes and ask for an ID. He tries to rattle off a date instead and then gets super defensive when told he needs a physical ID. You're the only one who cards me! Like, dude, I'm just doing my job. Management says we require a physical ID. You need to provide a physical ID. So he went back to his car, brought back an ID. It wasn't his. It was so painfully obviously not his ID. Not unless he was secretly a 50-year-old woman. That ID was not his. Now, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've had people who keep family members' IDs on them and grab them by accident when they come into the store, and this woman could have been his grandma for all I knew. So I handed the card back to him, told him that I looked at it, and he handed me the wrong ID by mistake. Nope, he intended to use that ID. Insisted it should be fine because, you need an ID? Well, here's an ID. When I point blank told him I couldn't use that ID unless the lady it belonged to was present, boy flipped out, yelling about how I'm the only person in this whole town who requires an ID, how our store needs to hire better people, blah blah blah. Just a bunch of whining about how I'm an awful person and how dare I. I kind of started tuning him out, to be honest, but he grabbed the pack of smokes, threw them behind the counter, and yapped on about how he's only getting the fuel. Okay, fine by me. I asked him which pump he was on. Only served to get him yelling at me more because of how far I asked confirmation over picking a random pump. Told him while he was paying that because of his behavior he wouldn't be welcome back in the store after this. I don't think he heard me because he was still complaining about how I wouldn't let him use some random lady's ID. I'll probably see him again at some point this week, knowing my luck, so it'll be interesting how a second encounter will go. I mean, if a place requires ID, then they need ID. I mean, quick little story, when I was younger I used to smoke. Quit, I use an e-cigarette now, still working on kicking that, but I went to buy cigarettes and I accidentally pulled out my gym membership card, and the guy just looked at me and I was like, oh, because I kept my gym membership card and ID in the same spot. So definitely can understand how mistakes can happen, but not when that mistake is a completely different person. This next tale is by Chili Crypt. I was working on the cash register and had a few people in line waiting to be checked out. After finishing up with one customer, I call out my usual, I can help whoever's next. Well, the two ladies who were next in line weren't paying attention, so I call out again. As they still didn't notice and the allotted awkward time ran out, the woman behind them came up to me so I could ring her up. I finished her transaction and she went on her merry way. Now the two aforementioned customers finally noticed they had been next as I began my greeting. I can take you guys right here. They were pissed. One started yelling about how I helped someone else while they were next in line. They were just overall berating me for this while I stood quiet and confused. It's crazy how somebody could be standing right there yet pay absolutely no attention, yet can somehow pay enough attention to see that somebody just went ahead of them in line because of the fact that they weren't really paying attention. Absolute characters, those two. This next tale is from Conscious Glass 409. I sell alcohol, and so it's my job to see ID if you look young. Well, a young female and her boyfriend came up to my register, she literally looked 14, and tried to buy multiple bottles of liquor. I asked for some ID, and she goes, "It's not for me, he's buying it." I said I still needed to see her ID, can't sell it to you otherwise. So she storms off all mad and leaves all the bottles there for me to put away. She comes back 30 minutes later with a picture of her ID on her phone. I said I need a physical ID, I can't just see a picture. She rolls her eyes and storms off again. I honestly laugh it off. Well, her and her boyfriend and some other dude come back and start yelling at me about not serving them. Why wouldn't you serve us? You served that white lady in front of us, but not us. I said, sorry, she doesn't have her ID. Can't serve you, sorry. Well, why can't you serve us? That's discrimination. I just smiled and said, you can leave now. Bye. Oh yeah, because not having your ID in a place that requires ID for a purchase that requires that ID is definitely discrimination. I think they need to look up what the word actually means. This next tale is by I Love Wetting My Plants. As I was ringing up a customer, she gives me 2 coupons. Both coupons indicate that they can't be combined, so I suggest she save one for later use. I have an optimistic, upbeat, friendly personality. I'm also pretty empathetic, and I always try my best to deliver disappointing news in a good light. She continues to press me about combining the coupons, and I tell her that I understand her frustration, but I repeat that the coupons cannot be combined. I stayed calm and kind. A few days later, my store manager asks to talk to me in the back. He starts off by telling me not to change who I am after we talked and giggled. Then he proceeds to tell me that I had a formal corporate complaint from a customer for being too bubbly. She said my interaction with her was insincere and therefore made her very uncomfortable. This customer made no mention of the request for coupon stacking. Thankfully, my store manager was already aware of the initial incident, but he still had to file a report into my employee records since it came from corporate. This Karen really needs to learn to read because you know the complaint came from her. She wasn't able to Karen out in the store, so she had to call corporate to Karen out, all because she couldn't read that 2 coupons could not be combined. And our final tale is from The Monstrumologist. I have a regular customer who comes in and tries to barter with me over vapes. He'll constantly ask if I can give him a discount, and just a few minutes ago, he made me want to explode him with my mind. He came in and asked to look at the $5, $10, $15 disposable vape grab boxes we keep behind the counter. There are 3 separate boxes, separately labeled $5, $10, and $15. I bring them out for him to look through, and he starts talking about, every vape has different effects, right? And I just look at him and say, I mean, different flavors, yeah, but it's all nicotine, so... And he looks at me like I have 3 heads. Then he starts moving the vapes between grab boxes based on his opinion of how much they should actually cost. I put them back behind the counter and will now have to deal with rearranging them based on their correct prices. Finally, I'm ringing him up, and he says he uses the store phone number for his rewards account. Okay, sure, whatever. I type in the store phone number and, sure enough, there's an account attached to it. I tell him his total and he goes, what? No discount? Isn't that just what we talked about? I looked at him again. No, there's no discount on the grab box vapes. He says he'll pay cash, and then for some reason starts trying to mess with the iPad that's facing him and showing him his total. It's not interactive, literally just a screen that shows the items and total. I tell him it's not a touchscreen. Yes, it is. And still, nothing happens on the iPad screen. It still displays his total. He gives up, tells me he's going to get cash, and has not come back yet. I hate it here, man. Edit. Oh, I forgot to mention, just before he left the store, he searched through the trash can for discarded vapes. I mean, if he literally looked through the trash can for any vapes that people threw away, chances are he doesn't have the cash to pay. Alright, that's enough tales for the day. Well, that wraps up this episode of Tales from Retail. If you liked the video, please drop a like, share my content on all of your social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload, and drop a comment down below. It really helps with the algorithm and helps new people find my channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to my patrons and super thanks contributors. Have a great day and stay safe out there.